To Dust. Written by Kristen Mullings. 2025 copyright.
Chapter 13, What Remains. I used to believe silence meant peace. That if the screams stopped, if the burning voices in my head went quiet, I'd finally be free. I thought quiet meant healing. That silence was sacred. But now silence feels like a warning. Because it's not quiet in here. It's empty. And emptiness is worse. It means something's missing. Something was ripped out. And I don't know whose eyes I'm looking through anymore. I woke with blood dried under my fingernails, crusted like rust. Dirt packed between my teeth. The copper tang on my tongue made me gag. My body was twisted in the cold grass of a burnt glade, smoke still rising from the soil. And Seren's voice, sharp, terrified, unwavering, cut through the void. Calling my name like it had been hours since I'd disappeared. Again. The fourth time this week. Each time, it's longer. Harder to claw my way back. Each time I return with less of myself. Less memory. Less identity. I come back as a shell and pray something human is still beneath the ash. The bond was supposed to be gone. The mirror, shattered into cursed glass. The heart, burned, bled, and broken to sever the tie. Seren paid for it in blood and breath, nearly died casting the right that should have saved me. So why do I still hear Erzalek laughing in the corners of my mind? Why does his voice linger like smoke from a fire that should be dead? Why do I wake under dead moons with clawed hands, phantom wings, and no memory of where I've been? I didn't tell Seren about the first blackout. Or the second. I wanted to believe it was nothing. Just echoes. Residue. But this time was worse. This time, I'd marked the earth in a perfect ring of bone and ash. This time, my lips had shaped a name I'd never learned. One not meant for mortal tongues. Kael. Her voice now, closer. Seren knelt beside me, her fingers trembling as they brushed the soot from my brow. Her eyes were rimmed with red, exhaustion hollowing her cheeks. She hadn't slept. Not since the shrine. Not since she gave up part of her soul, for me. I tried to speak, but my mouth was full of dust and blood. I choked, coughed, and sat up with a groan that felt like it came from 100 broken bones. She didn't ask if something had happened. Her gaze had already read the truth in the ruined glade, the sigils etched in blood across the earth. Her voice was steel wrapped in silk. What happened? I could have lied. Gods, I wanted to lie. To protect her. To protect us. But her eyes, Seren's eyes, they already knew. I don't know, I rasped, throat raw. I was walking. Then, it wasn't me anymore. She didn't flinch. Didn't cry. Just leaned forward, pressed her forehead to mine like she was trying to pour strength into my bones. Her whisper was steadier than I deserved. Then we'll figure it out. We tried everything. Spells. Sigils. Anchoring charms and circle chants older than any faith still practiced. She even risked the old rites from her childhood coven, ones they'd burned from the books because they were too dangerous, too volatile. And still, nothing held. Nothing stuck. Every barrier failed. Every binding cracked. Some days I was normal. Almost. Other days, I'd blink and find myself barefoot in a frost-covered graveyard, whispering ancient demonic verse to a raven that blinked with too many eyes. And every time, I felt him closer. Not inside me, around me. Like a skin I shed, now trailing behind like a shadow with teeth. He haunts the cracks. Waits for the next fracture. And every time I falter, he smiles. Seren started documenting everything. Every hour I disappeared. Every strange word I uttered in my sleep. Every rune that appeared on my back like scars from another life. She filled pages. Whole grimoires of pain and patterns. She stopped smiling. Stopped humming when she stirred her tea. Stopped dancing barefoot in the kitchen when she thought I wasn't looking. And I hated it. Hated what I was doing to her. One night, I woke screaming. Screaming like my bones had caught fire from the inside. My back arched so hard it snapped the spine of the cot. My shoulder blade split open with a sound like tearing wet parchment. Wings, half-formed, monstrous things, tore their way out. Bone. Blood. No flame. No feather. Just void. I clawed at them, wild with agony. Tried to tear them off, sobbing, snarling, begging the gods to end it. Seren pinned me down, magic lacing her hands, her own tears falling fast as she called my name over and over. Kael, please, come back, stay with me, stay. And when it ended, when the flesh restitched and the wings vanished like smoke, I saw her face. Saw the fear behind her trembling hands. Not of me. But of losing me. Again. The next morning, I packed my blades. Left the cottage before sunrise, while the wards were still drowsy. I couldn't stay. Not when I was becoming a creature she'd already bled herself dry to save. Not when every heartbeat was a countdown to another blackout. I didn't want her to burn for a fire I couldn't extinguish. So I ran. North. To the ruined lands, where curses still slept beneath the stones. To the cliffs where the sealed ones once screamed until they forgot their names. But of course, she followed. Seren never learned how to give up. I heard her before I saw her, boots crunching frostbitten soil, staff clutched tight in her hand, wind lashing her coat against her legs. Kael, she shouted over the storm. Don't you dare walk away from me again. I turned slowly. My hands were hot. Crackling with the same heat that used to mean magic, but now just meant destruction. I can't stop it, I said. It's still in me. Whatever we severed, it wasn't enough. He's not gone. Her eyes burned. Then we fight him. Together. What if I am him now? She didn't blink. Didn't back down. She stepped into my fire. Chest to chest. Face lifted in defiance and devotion. Then I'll remind you who you are every damn day. I laughed. Bitter. Wrecked. You'll get tired of it. Never. You'll end up hating me. She grabbed my hand. Pressed it flat to her chest. Her heart thudded against my palm. Then hate will be sacred. But I will never leave you. Not after everything we've survived. Not now. And so I came back. For her. We carved a warded circle in the caves beyond the moorlands. Old stone. Ancient echoes. Sacred ground. A place even demons paused before crossing. She said she'd anchor me. Watch over me. Trap me, if she had to. She kissed me before it began. Said my name like a blessing. And then, she stepped back. And I let go. Let Erzalek rise. Let the bones break, the fire pour, the wings stretch. I screamed. And somewhere in that scream, I left. I don't know what I did. Where I went. How long I was gone. Only this. Her hand on my chest. Her spell in my skin. Her voice shaking as she chanted my name through gritted teeth. And a whisper. Not hers. His. Even broken bonds have echoes. Then darkness. Then light. Then her arms around me, shaking, whispering. It's still you. I see you. Even if I don't. Even if I can't. She does. She always does. And maybe, that's what's holding him back. Not the severance. Not the spells. Her. So I stay. And I fight. And every time I lose a piece of myself, I find her eyes. Her voice. Her love. And I remember why I want to come back. Why I have to. Because whatever claws at the edges of my mind. She's louder. Stronger. brighter. And I think I love her more than I fear him. Even if he's not done with me yet. Even if the bond was never truly gone. Chapter 14, Echoes of the Unbroken. The realm didn't rejoice. Not after the bond was severed. There were no bells rung, no wings cast across the sky in celebration. The clouds didn't part. The moon didn't shine brighter. The well didn't calm. But it changed. I could feel it in the marrow of my bones. The ground had shifted. The currents of magic had stilled. Something in the fabric between worlds had been disturbed, then sewn haphazardly back together with frayed threads. And though the bond that had chained me to Erzalek had been broken, its remnants hummed faintly in my blood, like a song unfinished. Seren and I tried to pretend. We returned to the cabin near the marshes, tucked between dead trees and forgotten oaths. We harvested herbs and fed the crows. She read aloud from old grimoire pages while I sharpened my blades without knowing why. But every silence was loaded. Every glance was a question neither of us had the words to answer. Freedom came with a price. But neither of us knew what it was yet. One night, under a bloodless moon, she asked me if I still dreamed of fire. No, I said. I lied. Because I did. Because every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same thing. A door made of bone. A voice calling me back. And her. Burning. The realm shifted more violently 2 days later. The rivers reversed course. The sky cracked with a thunder that echoed like a heartbeat. The well of morning roared to life and screamed until the birds dropped from the air. Seren dropped her bowl of incense mid-chant. I dropped my knife. And in that moment, we both knew. Something had come through. We rode toward the hills at dawn. She astride her crow-stitched steed, me on foot like I always preferred, the dirt grounding me more than any saddle ever could. We followed the scent of burnt time and broken spells to the ruined basilica, where the bones of old packs lingered in the stone. And there he was. Erzalek. Not inside me. Not whispering. Not half-formed in the mirror. But standing there. Alive. Whole. Draped in shadows that coiled like smoke around his form. Eyes like molten gold. A mouth full of ruin. Seren stepped in front of me before I could reach for my blade. He laughed. How noble, Erzalek said. Still thinking you can save him, witch? Seren didn't flinch. He doesn't need saving. The demon prince tilted his head. Ah. But he will. He told us the truth then, or at least, his version of it. That the severance had broken the bond, yes. But it had also broken the barrier between the worlds. He had been cast out of me, and into this realm. Free. And now he had form. Voice. Will. Power. Because I had given him that, in my desperation. And Seren, in her love, had made it possible. You broke the chain, he said, stepping closer, but the chain was the only thing that kept the door locked. Seren raised her staff. We'll seal it again. Erzalek grinned. With what? Love? Loyalty? Spite? He turned to me. Or will you offer yourself again, Kael? One last pact. One final thread. My pulse thundered. What do you want? I asked. He smiled, all teeth and flame. Her, he said simply. Give her to me, and I'll seal the door. I'll vanish. I'll never haunt you again. Seren gasped. I stepped in front of her now. No. He didn't even blink. Then you know what must be done. The only way to reseal the fracture is with a soul, your soul. A second pact. A willing sacrifice. I didn't speak. Because I already knew. Because I'd always known this was never going to end with me free. It was always going to end with me choosing her. Seren tried to stop me. She screamed, cursed, cried. Begged. But I walked to Erzalek anyway. I looked into his eyes and saw myself, the part of me that had always thirsted for fire, for vengeance, for power. And then I saw her. The girl who burned herself to keep me warm. The witch who kissed my brokenness like it was sacred. I turned to her one last time. "You gave me back my soul," I whispered. "Now let me give you yours." Then I turned to him. And I offered. Pain bloomed like a nova. It felt like every nerve had been pulled out of my body, strung tight, then set alight. Erzaleka's scream wasn't rage, it was exultation. He roared as the pact began to take form again, but I twisted it. Not a pact of surrender. A pact of containment. I didn't give him my soul. I offered it as a cage. Our magics clashed in a spectacle of black flame and golden light. The ground cracked beneath us. The basilica groaned like it might collapse. And then, he merged. I felt him try to reach for dominion. But I was ready. I was the prison now. When the light dimmed, and the stars realigned. He was gone. And I was still standing. Barely. Seren ran to me, caught me as I collapsed, held my face in trembling hands. "What did you do?" she breathed. I smiled through bloodied lips. "Not a pact," I whispered. "A tether. I didn't give him my soul. I anchored him to mine. As long as I live, he's trapped. Powerless. Silent." She sobbed. Held me tighter. And for the first time in days, the realm was quiet. Not peaceful. But still. We didn't return to the cabin immediately. Instead, we walked the ruins. The basilica was empty now. The bones that had once whispered in its arches were silent. The blood in its walls had faded. We found remnants of older magic etched into the stones, symbols of pact and protection. Seren traced them with her fingertips and hummed a warding tune I hadn't heard before. I committed it to memory. That night, the sky burned gold. Not fire. Just light. We sat on the edge of the world, her head against my chest, listening to a heartbeat that no longer echoed with hellfire. And for once, I didn't dream of burning. I dreamed of her. And in that dream, we were free. And if the world should rise to break us again, I would burn for her all over again. Chapter 15, Embers in the Veins. I used to think darkness was something you outran. That if you kept moving, kept breathing, kept fighting, you could stay ahead of it. But I was wrong. Darkness isn't a tide. It's a root. And it grows inside you. I woke up screaming again. Not the pain-filled screams from the wings or the blackouts. No, this was something deeper. A bone-deep ache, a mourning I couldn't name. The fire inside me was simmering, coiled like a serpent, waiting. And Seren. Seren was already at my side before I could draw a full breath. Her hands hovered over my chest, not touching, afraid maybe. Or calculating. "You're back," she whispered, voice trembling but calm. Her eyes shimmered with protective wards, lines of runes crawling faintly along her temples. She hadn't slept. Again. What did I do this time? My voice cracked, bitter, half afraid of the answer. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she summoned a basin of water and held it up to me. I peered in. Blood. Again. My mouth. My chin. My neck. "Not yours," she said quickly, seeing the horror creeping across my face. "A deer. You dragged it in from the woods. But Kael, you weren't just hunting. You carved a sigil into its skull. One I've never seen before." I closed my eyes and leaned back against the stone wall of the cave. The ancient one, the one we had started calling Tetherhold. The place where the old god supposedly once bled into the earth. The cave was deep beneath the moors, warded with layers of bone and salt and spellthread Seren had woven herself. "Do you think it was a message?" I asked. My voice felt hoarse. "Used." She nodded slowly. Yes. But I don't think it was from you. I think it was for you. We spent the morning decoding it. Well, Seren did most of the work. I watched. Tried not to twitch every time the shadows shifted too suddenly at the cave's mouth. The sigil was old, pre-fall era. Demonic, but not infernal. More, primeval. She finally found it in one of the books she'd stolen from the Ashmouth library back in the Dead Marches. The book was bound in hydra leather and sealed with blood. The symbol meant, he who waits beneath. I didn't recognize it. But something inside me did. I remembered falling once, years ago. Or maybe not years. Time had started to bend since Erzaleka's severance. But I remembered the feeling, falling into something ancient and deep. A hollow place. A prison. And a voice beneath it all, not Erzaleka's but older. Hungrier. Seren's face went pale as she kept reading. Kael, this sigil is a sealbreaker. It's used to weaken crypt-bound gods. A beat of silence passed between us. You think I'm being used to break a god free? I whispered. Or you already did. The air turned cold. The cave itself seemed to groan with memory. Later that day, we traveled to the Forgotten Ridge. Not because we wanted to, but because Seren said there were whispers there, dreams sown into the soil by the unseen mothers. I'd heard of them. Spirit scribes who etched time into memory so nothing would be lost. It was dangerous. You weren't meant to look directly at their work. But we needed answers. The path up the ridge was treacherous. Snow dusted the rocks, but beneath it, runes shimmered faintly. This was old land. Older than the shrines. Older than the pact. We reached the summit by dusk. And there, etched into a blackened tree that had never burned nor bloomed, were the mother's marks. Seren took my hand and pressed my palm to the bark. Her lips moved in an old tongue. The tree shuddered. Then, images flooded me, visions not of the future, but of a truth too long buried. A boy bound in chains of shadow, weeping as a voice coiled around him. A woman, eyes hollow, lips sewn shut. Placing a crystal heart in a fire and whispering a name that split the sky. A mirror breaking. A prince kneeling before an unseen throne. And then, me. Bleeding. Screaming. Becoming. I wrenched back. The tree smoked where my skin had touched it. I panted. I saw him. The one before Erzalek. The one who made him. Seren's expression turned grim. You saw the original pact. The first offering. That night, we slept curled together in the shelter of a broken watchtower. The stars were muted, like they feared watching us. I traced the lines on Seren's palm, memorizing every crease. Do you think I was always meant to fall? I asked her. She turned her head. Her cheek was bruised from the earlier trek, she hadn't even mentioned it. I think the gods tried to make you a cage, she whispered. But you're more than that. But what if what's inside me isn't just Erzalek? What if there's something older in the bond? Seren was quiet for a long time. Then, she reached into her satchel and pulled out a scroll I hadn't seen before. This is from the White Bone Archives. I didn't want to show you until I was sure. But the bond you had, it's not just a pact. It's a lineage. A blood mark, passed down from the chained flame. I stared at her. You mean? I was born with it. Not exactly. But someone in your line was. And it echoes. The severance only cut the surface tie. The root is still there. We returned to Tetherhold the next morning. I was quiet. Contained. But I could feel it. The old god. The hunger. Something was rising, not fast, but steady. And it wanted out. Seren decided we needed help. She summoned an old friend, an exile named Thorne who once walked the Ebonfire courts. A spellcrafter, half demon, half forgotten. He arrived at night, hooded and cloaked in ember thread. "So this is the prince's carcass," he said, eyes flicking over me like he could see everything at once. "I'm not his anymore," I said. He grinned. "Aren't you?" He examined my skin. "Read the scars." Whispered to the bones of the cave. Then he turned to Seren. "You're right. He's marked. But not just with one name. There's a third now. Something newer." Seren stiffened. "Another presence? More like a sleeper. A tether to the root. It's waking. And when it does, your boy here. He won't be Kael anymore." The days that followed were a blur. Spells. Potions. Blood work. I endured every ritual Thorne threw at me. Some burned. Some bled. One nearly cracked my spine in two. But I took it. For her. For us. And through it all, Seren stayed. Some nights I woke to her sketching sigils by candlelight. Other nights I found her in tears, praying to gods that hadn't answered her since she was a child. One night, I found a letter in her handwriting, half-burned, tucked under a runestone. "If I lose him, I'll go with him." I didn't confront her about it. I couldn't. Because a part of me, deep down, felt the same. It wasn't until the 7th night that something changed. I slept. And for the first time, I dreamed of myself. Not the prince. Not the old god. Just me. I was a child again, running through the poppy fields outside my village. My mother's voice in the distance. Laughter. Light. And then. A door. Massive. Iron wrought. Covered in chains and eyes. I reached for it. But before I could touch it, a voice behind me said, "If you open that, you don't come back." I turned. It was me. Older. Eyes black. Wings full. Flames dripping from my fingers. "Who are you?" I asked. "I'm what happens if you give in." And then, I woke. Thorne left the next morning. Said he'd done all he could. "The rest is choice," he said. "His. Not yours." Seren watched him go in silence. I held her hand. "We're not done," I told her. "No," she said. "But we're closer." And maybe we were. Because for the first time since the severance, I didn't wake up screaming. Only burning. And even though the bond wasn't gone, even though the god beneath still waited, something in me had changed. I wanted to fight. Not just survive. But win. For her. For me.